Hello, I am Roger Ulski, one of the directors of SACA, and this video is a presentation I gave at the 2012 meet at Berrien Springs. It's about a data recorder I designed and built and put on my three-wheel steam vehicle I call the Tragster, and it was just to gain actual data when a run is taking place in our 1/8 mile standing start time trials. So when I gave the meet, we hadn't had the time trials, so I didn't have the data yet, but since then, of course, I now have the data, and so at the end of the presentation, I'll tell you what I found out. Our motto at the meet is run it till it breaks, and I did break it, but not before I managed to get the data I was looking for, and also won the first place in the 3 and 4 wheel carts category, and in addition had the highest top speed at the end of the 1/8 mile run. So I'm very happy with that. So let's get started with the presentation. This is the presentation I gave. I call this the good, the bad, and the ugly, which will probably be obvious pretty soon. This is actually the box where the data recorder is located. Now the objective, somewhat jokey, is to make the Tragster as complicated as possible, but I do enjoy electronics, so it is in fact get pretty complicated. A side benefit is it reduces the probability of running on any particular day. At the meet it did run, and incidentally record the cylinder pressure so I can find out what the limiting factor on the engine is. So now this engine, the way the Mark III is configured, is actually my steam launch engine. This is a picture of my boat. And it has a very, it's about a dozen years old, and it has a very calm life, going at 100 psi at a 1/3 horsepower, 50% cutoff, and it's probably got at least 1,000 hours on it. It's old-timey slide valve engine, and I changed the cutoff from 50% to 90% for the dragster application with the thought that I could get more steam into it because the opening to admission would be larger. And so here's a short video show what it used to run like and before this and what it runs like now. So you can see this is quite a versatile engine. Top speed at the end of the 8th mile run is now 33 miles an hour. Now the slide valve engine has well documented problems. Some of them are the tortuous path for the steam inlet path. It has taken 90-degree turn, then it runs straight a little while and 135-degree turn. The exhaust pass is the same, but then at the end you have to do another 180-degree turn and a 90-degree turn. So this exhaust pass is suspicious here. And of course you have to have the same passage for hot steam and cool exhaust. And now no doubt there's other problems too. Now you've already seen this before. I had it in the bulletin article. This is the pressure transducer I use. This is only good for 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and since I run 600 degrees steam, I use a temperature isolator between the engine and the transducer, and this is a little cooling jacket, and I run cooling water through there. This then feeds into a small box with a very simple little amplifier, and this is the box, and so this gives me a voltage which is proportional to pressure. This is the way I tap into the cylinder. You can see this is the top head, and I come in right here. That's the way I tap in, and it goes down to the amplifier, and these are the cooling water tubes. Here's another view. of it coming down to the amplifier. The cooling water is actually just a small water pump in the feed tank, and whenever water is being pumped into the boiler, this runs. So, and it seems to keep it nice and cool. Then I have to record the data. So that output of the amplifier goes to this thing right here, which is the data recorder. And I use an Arduino Uno, it's called, or Uno. And then I use this shield, which and this is all interface circuitry, a lot of extra stuff there I didn't use. But it saves it onto a SD card, which is just the same sort of thing you use in your camera. So when you have your data, then you can put it in your computer and download it into a spreadsheet and fool around with it. Now I've only, as of the meet, only recorded preliminary data because I just do not have a straightaway. So the most I had done is 845 max RPM. Now the good news is that this is at low RPM, 444 RPM, so that's about double what it usually runs. And this is at 853 RPM, so this is about 3-4 times what it usually runs. And this is the emission stroke, and of course this is a lot longer because this is time along the bottom here. So during the emission stroke, steam is doing pretty good as far as getting into the cylinder in both cases, and so I was pleased with that. The bad is now on the low RPM. We would like to see, and in fact when I run this in the boat, I get a steep drop down here to atmospheric pressure. This is not, so it's taken a little while getting the steam out. It is not that bad because you'll notice that this is PSIA over here, so this is about 15 PSIA, so it is getting all the steam out before the rest of it, the next cycle starts coming in. So it's bad, but not that bad. This is where it gets ugly. This is 853 RPM. Notice the similarity in the slope of the pressure, the way it's dropping. Well, with this one we went down to atmospheric pressure, we got it all out. But at higher RPM, you don't have as long to get it out. So I'm only getting down, I'm only getting down to maybe 60 PSIA before I start coming in again. So what I would like to see, of course, is this thing to drop down here and come up. So that is very suspicious and will probably be the limiting thing. So the next step is I'm going to get some data at higher RPM when we do our time trials and then analyze it. And then after the meet, the engine's going to be moved back to the boat, back to a 3rd horsepower, and live out its life in ease.
It's gonna be a blast.
So now let me show you what I found out. This is the way the data looks when I get it out. It's just a bunch of numbers separated by an X and a couple of more numbers. And on the left of the X is time in microseconds, and right is bytes, which represent pressure. So that's just what you get. So what I did is you put this into a spreadsheet and extract the time out of it. This is time, and you convert those bytes into pressure, and that's that. So let's take a look at the pressure chart. This is takeoff, and you can see a high frequency oscillation here. I have not seen this before ever, and it appears to be a something unique to the Tragster. I've got about a foot of 3/8 inch pipe, flexible tubing going from the boiler to the engine. And it's like I get a high frequency oscillation when the valve opens. So I have to assume this is actually happening at this time. So what I've done is smooth this out so we can have a better look of, and there it is, smooth. I just took out the high frequency oscillation. So you can see what happens. When I start out, the belt is slipping, because you see how fast these strokes, each of these is a revolution of the engine. So the belt slips for about, the gear ratio is 2 to 1 roughly, so it slips for about 1.5 revolution. And then it starts to grab, and it finally grabs, and then continues on its way. So that is, that's the takeoff. Now if we look at engine RPM, we can see that it really doesn't settle down completely till maybe about 5 seconds. Excuse me. There is some fooling around here. Oh my. And then it does okay. So let's take a look. Miles per hour. The miles per hour is showed at the end of 8th mile. I showed I was at 37 miles per hour. They timed me at 33. I'm not sure why there's a difference on that. Now let's take a look at a high RPM smooth chart. This is the pressure chart at the end. And of course, things are going on a whole lot faster. And now let's expand one of these things. And here's an expanded. This is the pressure. So you can see I'm only holding a maximum of about 140 psi absolute at the end, and also only dropping down to about 60 psi, which was what I saw before. And if we look at the indicator diagram for this, I'm getting up to the point where I don't have a real smooth graph anymore, because of I'm only taking 1,000 points a second. It would be better if I had the higher speed, but with the controller I'm using, that's all the faster it will run. So you can see on the admission stroke, once again, it's pretty darn good, but on the exhaust, it's very, very bad. What we would like to do is see this drop down to here and go across. So the conclusions are, I've got basically full stroke admission. At the end of the run, that's at the higher speed, the emission pressure was 135 psia. That's all I could hold. And it held pretty steady during the whole admission. And I calculated the MEP for the engine, and it comes out to be 69 psia. I said A there, but it's just psi. Or PSIG, and if I had an equivalent theoretical engine and I put in exhaust pressure of 67 psi, that's what you would get. So this is horrific. If I could have an exhaust pressure of 14.7, I'd get an MEP of 118. In other words, the power would be almost double, and I could really do some self-inflicting injury, no doubt. So the usual lesson that I learned is exhausting is tough. I'm sure everybody already knows this, and I'm sure there's also a cutoff that would be the optimum. So it would be a shorter cutoff, so you'd have a little less power on the admission stroke, but it'd give you less steam, and you would be able to get it out better. And of course, the big lesson is to use the engine for what it was designed, which in my case is my boat. So that's it. Enjoy, and hope you can come to a meet in the future.